Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, depending with whichever part of the world you are watching us from. Hi, welcome to yet another exciting episode of Single Parenthood, whereby today it's all about the psychological effect of being a single parent to both the child and child stroke children, actually, and the parent. And it's such a pleasure that I have my co-host, as always, John King on the other side. And then today
Hello.
we are joined by Martinez. So, guys, welcome. Hi, John King.
Hi, how are you?
Fabulous. Martinez, welcome to Single Parenthood.
Thank you so much. It's a
Anytime.
pleasure to be here.
I know. Remember, guys, we are currently live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Keep on sharing the link. Talk to a friend. Share. Because what we're going to discuss today, this is just a disclaimer. It's going to be a little bit more personal. The thing that we may talk about might be more, psychological, something that might trigger something. But at the end of the day, that's why we have a profession, aka Martins, to be able to talk to us about it. John Kate, please introduce us to Martins.
All right,
Yes,
so
it's another week. It's really amazing. I mean, I don't know, Conchita. The weather on my side is, man, it's been chilly. I don't know about your side. I don't know about Martins. But look, guys, I mean, we are diving into a serious conversation. We
Yeah.
have this situation whereby, your journey as a single parent, you're in that situation or you have had that experience in the past. There
Yeah.
is there's always the challenge, psychological challenge that we go through during that breakup period, introducing children to different kind of people, you're trying to
Mhm.
integrate between one another. And as well as when we spoke about last week, we spoke about the discrimination in the society that a lot of single mothers really do face compared to single father actually. So last week, just to get us started, last week,
Yeah.
Conchita, we
Mhm.
you were talking about in your area of setup that sometimes people look at you, they used to look at you funny. Some imagine you're a husband snatcher, those kind of things. And I'm really interested today because we have a guest. Uh, what psychologically speaking, Martin, psychologically going through it, like Conchita, she was in that setup, and within her estate, people always imagined her somebody who wants to snatch people's husbands and the like, and it bothered her for a period, and I think it also affected her child. What's your take on it? What's your take on it psychologically?
all right, so when we talk about our minds, we basically talk about how we interpret information that we are given by other people, because our external environment, it is our stimuli. All right, it
Yeah.
is what moves us to certain places where we can either come out of it or we can get stuck, and it becomes a downward spiral. So
Yeah.
when people tend to give you feedback that is negative or rather untrue, there's part of your mind that shuts out all the positive things, and you end up believing in those things because you feel like you're sent to, there's this force that you need to prove a point, like this is not true. So you find you channel most of your energy towards proving the sincerity or the truth of something, towards whatever it is you're being faced
Mhm.
with. Yeah, so
Mhm.
it becomes a challenge for the person who is facing this, but at the end of the day, society will throw anything at you.
Yeah.
So how strong are you to receive or pick up from where you are?
Okay, Martins,
Yeah.
if I may just ask you, there's so many questions when it comes to the psychological effects in terms of like how this affects both the parent and the child. So a lot of the questions that we've been able to get is when it reaches a point whereby you are introducing your child or children to this new person that you're seeing. For example, I've been very very open about it. I remember when my ex-husband finally introduced, his better half to our kid, she became, there was a little bit of an issue in terms of like how she reacted. It reached a point whereby she was even rejecting like going to this other side. And I felt like it was more of like her feeling like she needs to protect me as the mom, from how I might feel about her comfortability on this other side. But you see, at the end of the day, I've always wanted her to be comfortable, because I've always been open from day one. Like, listen, your daddy will have someone else and your mommy will have someone else in the future. But there's always that fear of like, what if? So how do we handle that as single parents?
All right. So first of all, you need to discuss in case of any kind of divorce, like what you mentioned. Let's just talk about that divorce. You have to introduce your child to the aspect of that. The daddy and mommy are not going to be together, but it is a process that you go through with your child slowly by slowly, okay? So that before it gets to the divorce, there is always a stage where you people feel like there is this, animosity between the two of you. That's the point where you bring in the child slowly as parents. I'm talking about divorce. As parents, okay? You can talk to her slowly, tell your child, this and this is happening, because in as much as that happens, the child can also see. They know, but they do not know how to communicate to their parents. So the parents become the bigger people. You sit with your child, you ensure you let them know that, baby, this and this happened because of this, so that they do not have that memory that mom and dad fought at a certain point, and they also know how to distinguish who was the bad person in that fight. So you ensure there is no animosity between the parents. You sit the child and you tell the child slowly. You don't have to tell everything at a go. That this and this happened. Mommy is not going to be around, or daddy, but we are here. We love you. Slowly, slowly, so that at least the child gets to adjust. Because as it proceeds, there are points where she might even say, "Mommy, today I want to go and see auntie or the other mommy," and you might get affected with that statement. You might feel like, what is it? Am I doing wrong that my child wants to go on the other side? It is the relationship you create with your kid, and this is based on the communication you have with her and the love you show your child, so that they're able to digest slowly and progress into better adults.
I don't know, John King, what about you? Like, for us, for me, it's opposite. John King, you're a single dad, so I don't know. Have you ever experienced any point whereby your child is like, dad, that's
Well, look, I'm not a single person anymore, but when I was, so it was a very long time. For a very long time, it was for a very, very, very extended period of time. There was, you try dating, you try to date in between, and then it reaches a point whereby you have to kind of do introduction and see whether it can work, inevitably, because I was a proud single father, and I'm still proud to be a father, and still raising my daughter on my side. So I got myself in situations whereby, I was dating somebody, I introduced a child, and we kind of dated for a bit, and then all of a sudden things went south. And this was really driven by the personality that I came to learn along the way. And then I had to kind of break that relationship, right? So my child was like, a lot of the time she was really disturbed. She couldn't understand the reasons why we cannot, she can no longer go to the normal visit that they used to have, or how she used to operate. And at the same time, she used to ask me, will she ever have a mother? And to me, I got affected. I really got affected. At that time, she was around about 3.5, and it was shocking to me for a 3-year-old to ask me such questions. And when Martin was talking about, you need to tell them pole pole, you need to engage them pole pole. I keep on wondering at what age, because as a parent, you also have this thing in your mind that maybe she's too young or he's too young to really understand what's going on, and maybe you're doing this thing for her own sake and for her own safety and things like that. I don't know at what age, in your experience, Martin, at what age would you have this kind of conversation?
All right. So there's no specific age for that. Like, you know, when she's 2, she's mature enough to get what I'm saying. When she's 3, she's this way. But what I'm trying to say is you create a good relationship with your child, in the sense that when you want to talk to them, it's a progressive kind of thing, because they're developing and their minds at this point are not able to indulge in so much. They're still children, so they're growing up slowly. So when it comes to this part where they don't understand why so and so left, you see, and you step in and you don't know how to explain to your child what happened, the confusion stays with them. There's a point where she's going to grow and she's going to ask you, Daddy, what happened to so and so? Do you feel like that would be the right time to now talk about it? It becomes a challenge for you, because you know this is something you're trying to bury. It's your past. So your child is bringing up and you need to discuss again with her, like, what happened. Otherwise, you're going to end up saying, like, you know what, forget about that. You know, you'll diss the child, forget about it. Why are you bringing up that right now? And those are it's something in their mind that is not making sense. They would like some clarity. Because you missed to identify those things while they still grow, they end up asking you at a stage where you don't feel like it's necessary. So you dismiss it, and it's a gap for them. Because as you continue to, like you said, right now you're no longer single. Praise God, that is good. Yes, it's nice.
Hallelujah, coach.
Being single is not fun. Being single is not fun. At least not for me.
It's not funny. You are not having fun when you're single. Disclaimer.
Yeah. So it also depends with how soon you introduce the child to your partner. And also how soon you bring them in to interact with their children, because you see, children will pick up behavior from the people they spend more time with. So they might end up picking up a behavior that you're not happy with, and you wonder, where has this child gotten this from? And you end up saying, oh, it is so and so. So you might also start blaming yourself. I introduced this person to my child's life, and now my child is behaving like this person, while this person is no longer in our lives.
I don't know. You know, like for me personally, Martins, if I may just like speak out, I have paranoia for days. I've been those kind of people who I have dated in the past. I even dated someone for a year plus. And the closest I ever saw my kid was through like an Instagram post. And, you know, with Instagram, I'm like covering her face. She's like, you know, this way. So the reason as to why I do this is because I happen to have a little bit of more like paranoia. Like I have my own personal fears, because right now we're in a place whereby the world is so not okay, if I may say. We have so many things going on. You know, we're living in a world whereby we have pedophiles, we have things happening, and being in a place whereby you have seen, you know, like I've seen parents who realize that this specifically person that they introduced to have either sodomized their own son, done nasty things to these kids. So by the time this parent is coming to realize this, it's like 10 years later or 21 years later. So now imagine having a conversation between your kid. You know, like, first of all, it's very hurtful to this parent, you know, like, how did I allow this? How did I not like be able to protect my own kid? But then at the same time, it's more of like, okay, so this happened. And it becomes very traumatic to both end of the party. So how do you handle such kind of place? Because let's face it, this is really happening.
Okay. First, we have to acknowledge that's very deep, and it is something that cannot be sorted out in an instant. It's not a quick fix. Okay, there are certain processes and stages you have to go through in order for you to negotiate a sane kind of thought, because these are things that stay with us. They haunt you forever. You see, like when you talk about paranoia, it will feed on it. So anytime you see your child going close to anyone, that is the first thing that comes to you, and you're forced to overprotect your child. You see, when you overprotect your child, you under-challenge them, because you deny them the opportunity to self-actualize. You deny them an opportunity to get to their full potential, because you're always there. If it is a father, they would say, if it is a son, they'd say that's a mama's boy, because you have been so overprotected that you don't have an opportunity to engage in a socializing better way. You know, your interpersonal skills are not at par. So when you go outside, you're incapable of making decisions. You're not resilient. You have all these shortcomings with you that your only fallback plan is back to mama. All right? When you're a girl, you have a daughter, you feel I need to protect my child from this, and this. So with those fears, you might find yourself punishing the child, because you've thought of something and you saw the child somewhere close to that place. You feel like, no, something bad happened. You call the child and you start interviewing this child, and she gets confused. Why is mommy asking me this? Why is this happening? You know, and already at that point, you're breaking the child. And then in the future, you'll ask yourself, what happened? I gave my child everything. I did this, I did that. But you forget that this kind of parenting, the overprotecting kind of parent, we call them the authoritarian parents. There is no decision for the child. It is this, and this is the way. So they end up not exploring what, you know, they have a lot of in them, but you've put limits. So they can't touch this, they can't touch that, but kids are meant to explore. So we have to allow them to do that. But parents need to also understand we are supposed to be here to guide our children. If they go wrong, you call them, you guide them. This idea of corporal punishment, belts and sticks and stools and everything, I think it needs to you know, everything is flying everywhere. And you're like, what is happening? What is happening here? So we need to learn how to be caregivers who are kind, caregivers who listen, understand their children. You pick on the small things. Ask them. Be inquisitive. They respond very nicely. And you get to understand, oh, my child is this way. In fact, you can pick their personality while they're still young. Yeah, and you can also monitor their fears. Like, baby, you don't need to do this. If you do this, this will happen. Compared to, you have 5 strokes for doing this. Go down. You know. Yeah.
I don't know. John Kim, maybe you tell me. Have you experienced a position whereby maybe, you know, your daughter lashes out without you really knowing why she's actually, like, you know, lashing out, and you're like, what in the name of Black Jesus is happening right now? And it just puts you in a spiral whereby you go like, you know what, not today, Satan. Like, listen, I know you may be somewhere in hell sipping a mojito, because we tend to blame the devil so many times, you know, for a lot of But before we get into that, I really want to read some of the comments that just came in. We have Benjamin Mandela, who says, the child shouldn't be brought in the differences between parents and just let the kid grow up well knowing both parents exist through doors separately. And then for the other one, Benjamin said, praise God, JK, good vibes. But then back to the question is more of like, okay, so I don't know. Have you seen some of how these kids end up, you know, like reacting? Because you see, at the end of it all, these are the kids that grow and they get into the society. So, what are the effects of like having an overly protected mother and overly protected father from different perspectives on these kids, especially when they grow up?
Well, if I may start, I mean, this one I can only say based on advice that I used to get from people around me. there are people who used to observe and say that I'm very, very close to my daughter. And truth be told, yes. I mean, what do you expect? I was the only person available. So, but some also made sentiments like, that level of relations, because I used to get worried a lot. Because of many things. You're away from home. She's still very young. She used to stay most of the time with the house help, and then my brother was also around, of course. But also, my brother was equally going to school. So many times you're seated, possibly working or at work or doing your own things, and you keep on worrying. So that inevitably brought some level of being overprotective, right? So I later learned pole that, you see, sometimes you have to kind of also be absent a little bit, have some bit of life balance on both ends, so that she can also grow knowing that there are times that you may not be available. So I do not know psychologically, I'm not a psychologist, but I do not know whether that approach was good. My argument was, this will possibly mold her up to be somebody a bit more stronger in the society. Someone who can at least stand up for herself if need be, but also be able to independently, have her own initiatives and her own mind within her own space. So Conchita, I don't have the right or wrong way to respond to you on this one.
I want my team to respond.
than I have.
Okay, that was interesting actually, because it just it picked up on the fears you have, and it also showed that your fear is past her, because you think and you say, what if I won't be there tomorrow? What is she going to do? Then she needs to learn. She needs to learn and understand that I won't be there all the time. So for that reason, today I won't go home. Today I'll stay out, relax, or maybe if you're doing business and all that. But my question is, do you always call and prepare her also psychologically, like, daddy is not going to come today? Because she might end up sitting on the couch waiting. It's late and she'll just sit and wait. I'm not having my dinner, I'm waiting for daddy. I'm not. That in itself becomes a problem for her. That it becomes anxiety. She fears what's going to happen next. So instead of you building a strong girl, you're building anxiety in her, because she stays wondering, is daddy going to come? Just your presence, even without talking, is enough for her. Just when you're around and she's running around and she just knows that daddy is seated on the couch, that's enough for her, compared to when she knows daddy is not coming. There's anxiety that builds in the child, and calming it down is difficult because she doesn't know how to do it, and the person who would have assisted is not around. So it's a challenge. You are the security. In fact, you have a daughter, so you are the security guard for the daughter. So you have to be here and you have to ensure, baby, this is going to happen, this and this, just know that he's going to be around. Don't let this and this happen to you. Come and report it to daddy. There's that, you're assuring the child, I'm going to be here no matter what.
So Martinez, my question before was more in terms of like, what are some of those effects that these kids who have grown up with different kind of parents, when they grow up, how do they tend to behave? Because you see, at the end of the day, I feel like there's a circle that is always growing, like it's going on and on. So it's more of like, how do we break that? Like, I saw my mom yelling at this person. Also, when I grow up, I'll also be yelling at this person. I never had this sort of love from, my father growing up. So, okay, as like when girls grow up, they tend to look for that sort of love in all the men. They tend up to be promiscuous. There's so many things. So what are some of these effects that usually tend to end up in a lot of these kids when they grow up?
Just before you respond, Mati, if I may add a few things onto the question.
All right.
You know, you get to a point whereby, you're possibly in a situation where you're doing co-parenting, like what we discussed in the previous past, or in a situation whereby you have blended family setup, and the child starts seeing different kind of scenarios within the same setup. I mean, as Conchita is putting it as well, I mean, what are some of those behavioral issues that we have as adults that have the potential later on to affect the child psychologically and also behavior-wise in the society?
Okay. Firstly, past experiences are predictors of future behavior. So if a child is in an environment that is aggressive, that is what the child has normalized. This is what is supposed to happen outside. Okay? So their past experiences was not good. They witnessed aggression. There was a lot of verbal abuse. So in their life, that is what you trained them to know. This is how it's supposed to be. So when they go to their lives outside, that is what they project. So unless they go for counseling so that they can understand that what happened in the past does not have to be their future. It doesn't determine the path they take. So this is sorted out through counseling, all right? Because these are behaviors that you have picked up from your past life, your childhood. You picked aggression, you picked verbal abuse, you picked a lot of negativity. So we need to debrief you from those things. You don't need this is not good. We need to progress you from one stage to another. You need to leave all these things aside. But sometimes there are relapses, even despite the fact that you can go through that process. One of the questions you asked earlier was, how do you deal with parents who are overprotective?
Yeah.
Overprotective parents, they won't allow their children to be productive children because there's a fear that bars them from letting go, giving the child a sense of autonomy, a sense of making their own decision. Like, Mom, I did this. No, you can't go down the stairs, you're going to fall. You can't do, your parent is there to just hold you, so you end up not experiencing life to its fullest. You end up not exploring your potential to its fullest. And this is where we have self-esteem issues cropping in. And when you have self-esteem issues, anything that comes externally, you will receive. And once you receive, it deprives you from anything that is positive. Because it has already been, your self-esteem has already been destroyed. So you need to pick yourself up again and know, this is who I am. Whatever comes my way, I can stand this. Look at bullying. You've taught your child so well. We have social classes right now, different social classes. So we have children who go with packed food at school, we have those who are aggressive, we have bullies there. If your child is overprotected at home, is that child capable of standing for herself or himself at school? You see, they fall victims of bullying. When you're bullied, what happens? You get depressed. This is a child, and a parent cannot pick depression from school because she's so scared, she doesn't talk about it. Mommy will go and report to school, it is going to reach so-and-so, and then I'm going to receive the same type of punishment. So it becomes a problem for them. Yeah.
That makes sense. So there's something you mentioned in terms of maybe these kids may be able to go and get therapy. But what about those who are not in a possibility of getting therapy? They don't have access to that. So how do you ensure that these parents make sure that the kids are not in that kind of situation?
All right. So we have guiding and counseling in schools. I believe so. Yeah. And teachers also play a big role in a child's life because whichever direction we take, they spend most of the time with the child. And we also have parents who do not understand their children. And when they go to school and they're told their child did this, they would actually punch the teacher. They'll say, that is not my child, you're not being sincere. Yes. So it's always good to get feedback from the teacher. How is my daughter doing? She's this way and this way. Your daughter, she pricked someone with a compass. She did this, she did this. You need to come and sit with your child. Why did you do this to so-and-so? Would you like it? Would you like it if someone did it to you? Those are the kinds of conversation you have with your child, because in as much as I'm talking about therapy, a parent can also do it. But it also depends with the tone. What tone are you using to address the kind of issue that is being presented to you? If your pitch is too high, then the child will draw back. She's not going to let you in. But if you take her slowly, how comes you did this and this? Then you get to know you have an aggressive child. This child needs to go to therapy. Or I have an aggressive child, like you said, if you can't afford therapy, let the teacher know so that the teacher can take it from there. Yeah, so it requires for you to let in other people who are outside, because a long time ago, bringing up a child was a communal thing. Anyone would punish you. You cross the gate, anyone, a stranger, anybody would punish you. But right now, if you touch somebody's child, that's a problem already.
Sure.
It's something we are facing. Yeah.
That is true. Sorry. On social media, we have at Benjamin Ondera who says, I'm a single guy who almost became a single parent, and I'm so grateful for this forum. Is I'm really learning a lot. Obviously, envious of JK, because I too would love to have a daughter and be a hero. Kudos, JK. How come somebody's telling me kudos? I thought I am doing an amazing job.
A likable person. Thank you so much, Benjamin.
Fathers get a lot Fathers get a lot of thumbs up, by the way.
That is okay. There's something else I really want to ask, because I know this is something that has been happening in a lot of households. There are those parents who, and this is something that has been happening, they have kids who tend to self-harm themselves. What could be the reason of, like a child self-harming themselves, and what is the solution to a lot of this? Because I know a lot of people who have done this, but the question is, what is the root cause of all this, and how do people get to handle that?
All right, so self-harm from an angle of dealing with one of my clients. This was when I came to ask her what was the issue, why would she used to cut herself. So I would ask herself, what happens when you do that, when you tend to self-harm? And she said, I feel good because right now I can focus on the healing of the pain than the pain I feel inwardly. You see? So that, so I found I had to take her through. Sometimes it's good to know what you like. All right? For instance, maybe JK likes sports. So when JK is stressed, he knows I can channel part of my stress in sports. All right? So people who self-harm, they feel like this is the way to relieve my pain. I'd rather suffer physically than suffer emotionally or internally. So they end up self-inflicting. So the other thing is to ask them what they enjoy doing. I enjoy singing. Why don't you put all your stress in a pen and paper and then bring it out, all right? So that it's easy for you to, you end up enjoying something you're doing, and it's less on the psychological effect just lessens. Because you channel things on the positive side of it and you've brought your strength out. This is my strength. So it's how you tap into the positivity of the things you love. Then you end up, you overshadow it. The negative side that speaks so loud. They tell you there's the devil and then there's the angel when you want to make a decision. And then we tend taking the side that we are like, I was thinking about this thing and I shouldn't have done that. But it has happened. So we can't dwell on it much. We see the way forward. Yeah. I hope that answers it.
Oh my God. So now this is something else. So how do parents handle that? Because I know there are a lot of parents who think, like, I have done everything for this, for my childhood children. Like, this also affects them as well, because they tend to ask themselves, what did I do wrong? So how do they get to handle themselves as well? Because let me tell you, definitely parents would blame themselves for kids' behavior sometimes. Yet they've done all they can. So what is usually this one thing that, regardless, kids just need, for them to either be a better person in society.
All right. So you see the part where you say they've done all they can. That in itself is the question. Because the parent we need to understand what is it all that you've done, but still the effect of this is dire. All right. So everything lies with the parent. If we start with the parent, then you get a chance to understand why the child is behaving in a certain way. But if you just skip the parent and you go direct to the child, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? They actually feel like they're judged, they're not needed. So we start with the parent, understand the parent, because it is through them you can pick the fault began at this stage. This is where it started. So you bring in the child. And you also allow the parent. I will keep stressing on this. Communication is very important. If the parent communicates with the child well, self-harm would be something in the past. Because anytime they'd feel like crying, they'd go to their parent and say, Mama, Dad, this and this has happened. But you see, if you don't have that kind of communication with your child, then chances are they won't come to you. And what is left is self-harm. Sometimes self-harm is always seen as something that is an attention-seeking behavior. Yeah. So when the child self-harms, it means there is part of her that no one has understood, and she needs to bring it out. So it is not something that we should say this one can kill themselves. We're very judgmental. She did this, she was trying to kill herself. She was trying to do this, she was trying to do this. But there is something she's trying to communicate, but that he or she does not know how to bring it out properly so that it can be addressed. So it's best to start from the root up. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Junkin, I don't know. Junkin, have you ever been in a situation whereby you feel like you need, like a psychological help? Because let me tell you, there's a time I remember I reached a breaking point and I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I am done. Like, listen, I have things I am dealing with. I have financial crisis. I have a partner who is supposed to be a co-parent who does not understand that I am going through this, whatever, and they need help. I have a child who does not understand why are you even single? Like, the other parent has moved on. Like, I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh, like, Jesus, take the wheel. I never understood how much it affected me, to the point whereby I found myself in the middle of the night putting my issues onto someone, yelling about a stupid bottle without me realizing, oh my God, this is not the issue. Like, my psychological issues on this other side. So, I don't know, I've never been in that situation.
Well, I've been in a different situation. In the beginning, you're used to that setup. You're used to that arrangement whereby, at least there's a mother at home and things like that. So I found myself at one point I completely forgot that I'm now a single parent. And on a Friday, went out and had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun. At around 3 in the morning, that's when I'm realizing, boy, oh boy, I'm supposed to be, somebody's supposed to be, being in bed right now or being put to bed right now. And I'm getting a call from home and being asked, okay, where are you? That's where was I? Oh, I'm a parent. So for me, it was more about adjusting, that adjusting to that. And you rightfully put it, you are busy, you are looking for money here, you're doing all manner of things, you're always worried about, is she going to go to school? Are you going to be able to afford milk? Are you going to be able to afford this? She's sick, people don't understand, so that's it reached a point. I called a friend of mine, I told her, do you know any good therapists or psychologists? Probably pro bono.
The therapist was for you or for the child?
It was for me.
For me.
Yes, it was.
It's for me.
It's too much.
Yeah, okay.
You can agree with me. Sometimes it's too much because you're thinking, oh my God, I'm just a human being. Like, I just need to breathe. And then you have this adorable little human being who's like, oh my God, did you say this and this and this? Oh my, and you're just there thinking, hi, yeah. For example, I remember this incident that happened. I had overfulizaed my fuliza. I had zero counts, zero, nothing. And then my steamer just went like, kaput, my KPLC. And I was thinking, what? Like, what's going on? So what I decided to do is I had candles in the house. So I told my child, like, you know what? Today, I'm thinking of something different. We are going to have a candlelit dinner. And let me tell you, that child enjoyed that candlelit dinner. She was like, oh my God, can you do another candlelit dinner again? Deep down, I'm thinking, if only you knew half what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Like, if only you knew the thing that is going on my mind right now. And you're thinking, okay, fine, I pull that down. And the next morning, you see this little human very happy, like, oh, calling everyone, oh, we had like a candlelit dinner. It was so much fun. But I'm like, oh my God, I need help. Like, this is too much. So how do you help parents like us? Because sometimes it's too much pressure.
Too much.
First of all,
I
I have to say congratulations for handling that fantastically well. That was awesome. You see, you hid everything. He didn't get to pick that there's an issue. You hid everything.
Yeah.
That already tells me that you're a very good parent, because you would not want to expose your child to the issues that you're going through, because you can't put a child in adult issues. It's too much for them. Yeah. So what you're talking about is finances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you feel like now you've hit rock bottom. There's no electricity, there's no food. You're thinking of so many things, how you're going to bring up this child and all that. But I have one question for you. How good is your support system?
What support system? What is
exactly? Like, what support do you have? Only have me is my own support system. My team.
Listen, you need a support system, something to fall back. The people are you friends. You need friends who you can, this is my support system. When I'm down, I know I can call this person and they can
I
come.
have John King and I same WhatsApp group.
Let me be honest. let me be very honest. Conchita possibly has a lot of female friends who can actually help her from time to time with different things.
Good.
Guys don't have the support system you're talking about. And they say we don't cry. Even in single parenting, it becomes very difficult to get this support system. So, what support system, from a man's point of view, would you have?
Support system does not necessarily mean friends. It also means family. I know family. When you're in Nairobi, family will look at you like you're supposed to be the one we're running to, and not the other way around. But you need to have a support system. Even your grandparents can be a support system to you. How often do you take your children there? They're the best people, in fact, you can make your children interact with, your grandparents. Sometimes you just need to talk. You don't have finances. For instance, what she's saying, she improvised. She said, you know what, we're going to use candles today. Just like when you don't have food in the fridge, maybe there's 2 eggs, you will improvise. For today, I will make these eggs. Let my son eat. I'm going to stay hungry. So you have to learn also to improvise. There's no money, but I'm going to use this instead of this. What is so funny, JK?
Don't you think Don't you think at that point
Right.
Conchita was just scamming the child? I mean, basically scamming the child.
First of all, that was a scam, to be honest, John Keane. That was the best scam I've ever come up with. Because, like, my daughter knows for a fact her first candlelit dinner was with her mom. Listen, I got this.
She did well. She did well.
Parents.
So now, Martins, if I may ask you, there's a lot of parents who sometimes, like they're those people who don't have anyone to talk to as much as you talk about family. They're those family whereby it's also overstretched. So how do what are either maybe like some practices or things that these parents need in order for them just to sometimes just to easen up a little bit, because it can't be so much.
Yeah. So, there are moments where you sit and you feel like, people are used to going out, having, eateries. They'll do it with friends. There's very few people who really enjoy their own company. Who, when they go out, they can ask for coffee or food, eat and think and come out with solutions at that particular time. They don't need people around them for that. You need to have that strong mentality. I can sort this out, but we are not we don't exist in a vacuum. We are not an island. There are people who will come through for us. Some of them are strangers. And these days they say, as blood is thicker than water, it's not the same anymore, because friends actually will come through for you than family. Yes, you need to learn how to enjoy your own company. It's the only way you learn how to grow. Because if you take yourself somewhere and feel like today I'm going with my girls and we are going to discuss this, then tomorrow we see a post from you backstabbing so and so, so and so, so and so. Those are the things we hear, because the circle is too big. The rumors are too much. The stories are too many. I don't like her hair. I don't like his trouser. I don't like this. So, people regroup. You're in a group, you're friends, but there's also another group within the group. So it ends up coming, you find there's a lot of situations that are propping up that becomes something that you can't stand. You need to separate yourself from that. So the best thing is to enjoy your company. Learn to enjoy your company, because you can only give what you have. If you have so much love, that's what you can give. That's what you project to other people. But if it's otherwise, then you end up in that cycle.
We have Martin Mudoni who's saying men don't have a support system. Well said, John Keane. So how do we help our men out here? Because you see, at the end of it all, it's they're also part of this conversation, because they're also raising these kids.
So men with support who don't have support system.
Yeah.
I'm still going to stick with the fact that no one exists as an island. And I'm also going to touch on on one of the aspects that JK spoke about, when he said that, I just went out and I thought I need to have a drink.
Yeah.
You see, I need to, what does that tell you? He just needed time to calm down. We need to ask JK if he did that alone or if he went out with the friends. Because at that point, when he's having that drink, the people you are with, you're sharing your laughter, sharing stories, that already becomes a support system for you. Yeah. If you want to talk with the barman and tell him, I want my mojito, I want it with a lemon, with a mint and all that kind of thing, that already removes part of the pressure you have at that particular place. Yeah. So support system does not mean you walk and you tail them along all the way. It just means like, today I just feel like, I need to let off some steam. And you step and go somewhere, and then and men. The good thing about men, they don't snob each other. Yeah. They'll talk and you'll be like, I don't know him. He just met, and the number is already taken.
Of them calling each other Buddha, bro, say cheese.
Exactly.
They don't know each other.
So men have the biggest support system. Maybe they haven't just realized this is how I create a support system, but they do have it. Yeah.
So there's this thing that I've seen a lot of people saying, like, I'm both the mother and the father of this child. But I know for a fact I will never be a father, to any kids. My job is being a mom. I'm a mom. As much as I am providing for a lot of things that maybe the father should be providing, and he's not doing that, it doesn't equivalent me to being both the father and the mother. So what are these effects, when a lot of people, especially the single parents, when they get to do this to the kids?
All right. Okay, so we have different circumstances that leads to one becoming a single parent, yeah?
Yeah.
So we can address the issue depending on what circumstance we are talking about, because it can be death of a spouse or one of the parents. We are talking about rape, children that are born out of wedlock. We are talking about so many circumstances that surround that single parenting.
Yeah.
So your question was, because you said you cannot be the mother and the father. You cannot be both. You can only be the mother, because
yes,
there's some
assistant role. Yeah.
There's some of the when the growth and development of a child is taking place, there is some aspect of fatherhood. Let's take for your case, that is needed in their life, because fathers are security. They're security for their children, be it the son or if they're raising a daughter. So if the father is not there in their life, like I said earlier, especially for the girl, the security is going to be sought outside. And that is when we come up with children who are promiscuous, especially the girls. Children who girls who cannot keep one relationship, because you're told, you're beautiful, and the other one tells you, I trust you, and the other one tells you are my everything. You end up being in multiple relationships because you're looking for that sense of security that you lacked when you were a child, right? Yeah. And then when you're raised by a dad, there's that maternal aspect of it that you also feel like you missed, So you end up searching for it, and you end up creating maybe a circle of friends that do not give you the desired response. So it is a balance that requires for the parents to assist. For instance, if in your case you're raising a daughter, it is good to raising a son. It is good to. It is always good to associate the son with the same sex, maybe uncle. Let them associate. Let them have that kind of relationship where they can sit and they can talk and he can feel free, because these are things I can't tell mom, but I can tell it to my uncle, to my granddad. Make sure you have brought them closer to the same sex relatives. The dad is not around. Yeah.
Oh my God. Unfortunately, Martin, this was really informative. However, we are going to have part 2 of this conversation next week because our time has definitely run out. So I am looking forward for next week to have this conversation, continuing. But we really don't have so much time and our time is up. So thank you so much for today. This has been very informative. Unfortunately, John King just abracadabra on us. So I think we need to continue this conversation next week. And for those who are just joining us right now, we were talking about the psychological effects on both the single parent, the psychological effects of single parenthood on both the parent and the child. And if you may read one of the last comments, we have at Immaculate who says, I enjoyed today's session as well as I learned a lot. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Unfortunately, the time is not on our side. My tunes. We are seeing you next weekend, right? For part 2 of this.
Sure thing.
So this is so much fun, but unfortunately, because of time, we have to go. So next weekend, same time, same place. Keep the conversation going on. Share the links because you know someone who knows someone who's going through this. And remember to share with us, what you think about today's conversation, your comments, your feedback. Everything is highly appreciated. So until next time, same place. Bye.